Hi, everybody. Doug Jenkins with the Findlay Hancock County Chamber of Commerce. Paul Hadde of Chick-fil-A Findlay joining us as we talk about employee recruitment and retention. Paul is our featured speaker at Fresh Brewed Business at the beginning of July. A lot of great points, and wanted to make sure that we were able to get those points out to our members. So, Paul, thanks again for joining us. The presentation last week was great, and I think just a lot of things to think about in this world of recruitment and retention right now.
Yeah. It was really, I was very appreciative that I had the opportunity to come speak. So thank you for that. And obviously, as everyone knows, it was my pleasure to be there.
We just enjoy making people get up early to talk to people. So let's get into, I mean, first of all, one, you never hear anything bad about a Chick-fil-A employee, which is a credit to you and to the company. But it doesn't seem like you lose a lot of employees. And part of that is company culture from the top down corporate, but there's a lot of intentionality to that, which may not be a word. I may have just made that up. But let's kind of go through it step by step. When you get into the recruiting process, you know your culture, you know what it takes to make a good Chick-fil-A employee. And obviously you can say, well, this works for Chick-fil-A. I feel like you can port this method to just about any business by establishing this culture and knowing who fits into that culture.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, like it's just such a blessing to have Chick-fil-A Inc. And kind of everything that they've established and all the kind of operators who came before me. So by the time we get a lot of team members who are applying, they say, hey, like, I want to be that Chick-fil-A employee, right? They've had the experience with us. And so because of that, they know at least somewhat what the expectations are going to be. I think it ends up being a lot more work than maybe it kind of appears. It takes a lot to kind of make the magic happen. But people already have that expectation coming in. So when you establish that culture, especially if you're a customer facing business, then you have that opportunity for people to have experienced it and then know what the expectation is.
So you have a little bit of a leg up in that regard, but that doesn't mean that the things that you do behind the scenes can't be implemented by not just restaurants, but manufacturers, by office staffs, by that type of company. There's a lot that crosses over. So we'll get into that. Let's talk about your recruiting process. What does it look like? What do you look for, and what stands out to you?
So from a recruiting process, we've tried a lot of different things over time, right? So we're no different than many others, right? Most recruiting at this point is going to be like online based, right? Just post the job boards. You're basically fishing for the masses, right? And that's going to be our typical strategy outside of word of mouth recruiting from our team members. That's honestly where we get most of our new team members. But you kind of get that injection of talent when you go outside. But the key is to just not sacrifice culture, right? I talked about this last Tuesday. You really get into a cycle of just having to continuously rehire if you bring in people who aren't a good culture fit for you, because they're either going to quit early or they're going to drive your good people to quit. And so you're just going to end up recruiting again and again and again. You need to have your onboarding established. You need to have your training plan established, and you need to have that culture established prior to really going on any type of big recruiting push, or else, again, it's just a perpetual cycle. And I know what everyone is dealing with right now.
Well, yeah, I think you make a good point. It's one thing to lose an employee a couple of weeks after they start. That's not helping anybody. But if you bring in somebody who drives other more established employees to quit, that's almost poisoning the well at that point.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest thing is setting expectations for people in regards to when new people come in and holding everyone to the same standard. No one likes when, you allow that employee to just hang around and maybe do little to no work, but hey, they're a body, or not holding people to showing up. I think attendance is the biggest thing where we just don't really mess around with that. If you're going to continuously cause issues with attendance, then you can't be a part of our team, because that ends up being pervasive. Because what happens is someone doesn't show up to work, and then you're calling in other people to try and get them come in. They're constantly getting calls. And then you know what? On a nice 70-degree day, that person who's covering is like, I always show up to work. I don't really feel like working today, so someone else can cover for me. And that is when you really get into some trouble. So attendance is honestly the bare minimum that you should really expect out of a team member. The best ability is availability, as Bill Parcells says. So if you have people who aren't there, then you can't coach them up, you can't train them, and it will absolutely kill morale.
Do you find people are willing to be coached?
Yeah. So anyone who's really worth their salt is willing to be coached, right? Now, it doesn't mean it's always fun. A lot of times there's a lot of tears with good employees, right? But you don't want anyone who is unable to take disciplinary action. I mean, I remember the first time I got written up, like as an employee, I just completely forgot. It was actually at Chick-fil-A. I completely forgot I had a shift. And they're like, well, what were you doing? I was like, honestly, like I was just sitting at home and my phone was on silent. Like there's absolutely no excuse. And like it hurt, but I understood, hey, I completely understand why you guys are doing this. And if someone is going to quit because of one disciplinary action, that's not someone you want anyways, because ultimately discipline should be about growing and developing a better team. It's not a path to terminating someone. And in so many large kind of corporate environments, like when I was at Speedway, that's kind of how we were trained up, right? Is that it's just a series of rights in order to get people to get out the door and not have to worry about some of those other things. And ultimately, it probably didn't start that way, but company policies and things kind of get in the way of that. And so our thing that we coach on is, hey, this is not like the end for you. The expectation is you're going to be better from this, and this is not going to be a reoccurring issue. So we expect you to go on and do some good things after this.
You mentioned the onboarding process, which I think goes along with the coaching aspect of it. And we even had Joe Fenimore from Flag City FPC talking about onboarding as a way to retain employees last week. And if you're watching this in the Chamber YouTube channel, you can actually go back into your member hub and watch that entire meeting. There's a lot of good information there. But I think it's a point to keep drilling down on that. I feel like a lot of the battle is won and lost in that onboarding process, where if you have a good onboarding process, your retention rates are going to be higher. If it's a little helter-skelter, your retention rates are going to be lower. What is it about your onboarding process that encourages people to stay?
So I do all, or I've done almost all onboarding sessions with new team members. And I think that's important, right? Is to get someone outside of maybe HR or something like that, someone who's a little higher up, to really cast vision there, to be like, hey, this isn't just, you know what I mean? We're not just serving chicken sandwiches here, right? Like we're serving people. And I think it's just so important that you set people up for success. You know, I think one of the reasons why people leave a job early is they feel really uncomfortable and unprepared. And so one, you want to make them feel welcomed and part of the team from day one. Two, you want to cast that vision that we're doing something bigger. And then three, you want to set them up that they're going to have the knowledge for all the things that they'll need to know. So not just specific job duties, but who do I talk to when some situation would arise, you know? Even something as simple as like, where are the restrooms could be super important that you could be overlooking. We're actually working on continuing to better our onboarding process. There's a lot of Chick-fil-A's who do it even better than us. And so we want to make it kind of a special experience that people are going to remember. Because again, it's that first impression. The first day I walk through, how did that make me feel? Right? They're not going to remember a lot of the training that they get, right? They might take away one or two things, but they'll definitely remember how they felt on that first day.
You talked a lot last week about investing in employees, and obviously, you know, one way to retain employees is to pay more. Sometimes you can do that, other times you can't. But there are other ways you can invest in employees and let them know that they're an important part of the business. What are some of the things that you recommend in that regard?
Yeah, so from an investment standpoint, number one, it comes with giving people the right equipment. I mean, I've seen tons of businesses time and time again, equipment breaks down, the people are under-resourced, and nothing sends a message that like you don't care and don't value even the business itself than if you're not doing those things to keep things up and running. And so, you know, it can be frustrating as a business owner if, you know, people aren't treating equipment the way it needs to be. But my philosophy is I always want to have working equipment. I always want to have top of the line equipment as long as it makes economic sense. And I always want to be pushing the boundaries on efficiency and things like that. So if you've been visiting our drive-through, you'll notice over time, we've consistently changed our process all about adding new equipment, making things more efficient, making it easier and better for the team. And I think that's one of the crucial investments you need to make in your people. I think now more than ever, people want more than just a paycheck, right? So obviously they want to feel like their work is meaningful, but also they want people who care about them. And like, I know at times that doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem like as a business leader that you should have to be the counselor for people or help them through situations or help push them to the next level of development, right? We want people to want that for themselves, but we need to look beyond what makes sense to us as maybe a leader and look to what is the right thing to do. So we this year just invested in a director of development. So that's outside of even training, right? And his job is to work with our leaders to grow their capacity so that our leaders can be better for our team members. And then also work on the next generation of leaders. So doing leadership training classes for people. And then also we do what are called one-on-one sessions. And so those are typically monthly. And so I'll in general sit down with our director level team, which is about 9 different people. And we're not only exclusively talking about the business and their performance and kind of our game plan going forward, but how are they doing personally? How are they doing financially? Any of the things that they are willing and want to talk about that I can help them with, or that Landry, our director of development, can help leads with or our team with, we're willing to sit down and have those conversations, because sometimes people just never had people in their lives who invested in them and taught them, hey, this is maybe we do a budget with someone and we want to be there to just be a resource to people to help grow them professionally and also personally, because if they're better personally, that is going to make them better in their professional life. And obviously we always want to be growing professional skills.
Yeah, we talk about mentorship, and a lot of times I think maybe we think, oh, well, kids need mentors, and they do, but I mean, adults need mentors just the same, and somebody to kind of use as a template to success, which is I think it's kind of where you're going with that, which is really good. A couple more things for you. You talked about valuing feedback from the organization or from your employees. Certainly, there are some edicts that have to come top down, but you have to be able to take that feedback from the floor to help potentially better your business.
Yeah, so I think Chick-fil-A Inc. modeled that really well just for me, and looking at like all the things that started just in one franchise and then kind of became chain wide. Also, like operators in general are really great about sharing kind of best practices, new innovative things. And so when I really look at that in my organization, I think, I feel like I have a lot of good ideas, but at the same time, like we have 135 employees, right? And so with each pair of hands that we hire, each one of those comes with a free brain. That's a great Mark Miller quote, awesome author. And so I want to use their expertise, because we have so many people, we have so many different positions. Ultimately, there are so many people who are expert at different areas in the business that I'll never be able to become expert in, because I just don't have the time to spend that much time specifically zoned in on a position. So I want to get feedback from them in order for us to be better. And that's definitely easier said than done. A lot of people sometimes have the mentality, if they bring up one thing and it gets shot down, then it's like, oh man, I can never bring anything up again. But that's something that we are consistently pushing, that, hey, we want information to come from the bottom up so that we can make the best decisions for the business going forward.
And that can be a hard thing to do. I know, so me personally, I'm a person who asks a lot of questions, as you are finding out today. But I would love to know the why. And so probably when I'm a new employee, especially when I was younger, why do we do it this way? Why? And it wasn't so much like, I think I know a different way to do this, although when I was younger, it probably had something to do with that. But more like, okay, this is helping me understand how to do my job. And then as I get used to it, maybe I'll find some different ways to add into it, but I need to know why we do things the way we do them. And I think sometimes business owners take it as a challenge to the way they've established it, which is maybe not the way to look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things in business that are an ego thing. I remember when we just opened, and I'd get all the like Google reviews coming in, and every single one that wasn't like a 5-star or was negative, like I took it really personally, and I struggled with that for probably about almost a year. And then finally, you cannot take these things personally. And at the end of the day, right, if one of our core values is excellence and we want to drive towards that, then I need to be less than the mission, right? Mission is king. So what we're doing, if we want to be the best, that has to be above my ego. So it's okay, like I said, if someone else comes up with something that's going to be better, because ultimately that's going to benefit the entire team, perhaps even the entire chain, if we come up with something that's great. So you have to take some humility for sure.
Absolutely. Last thing for you, and this one really kind of stuck out to me, is you have to plan for healthy turnover. You certainly, I know we're talking about employee retention and recruitment today, and that's certainly a theme of a lot of what we'll be talking about this year at the Chamber, but you know you're going to lose people. I mean, it's just the nature of business, but there's a way where that's almost a healthy thing for your organization. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So when I started this business, obviously I have the advantage of having a lot of young high schoolers, right? So they're most likely, most people, more than 90% of people will probably not stick around with Chick-fil-A as a career. So I come in knowing, right? But I decided early on, I want to be a business that launches people, right? And so when we look at that concept of launching, we want to give people the opportunity to improve their skills, themselves, any way we can, to where we could put them in a better position to be more successful in their life, right? And so some people might come and they might work for us for a couple years, and if we develop them and we work well with them, and we're very clear up front that, hey, there might be opportunities for you here, but at the same time, even if there's not, we want to continue to grow you so you could be successful wherever you go. I think people really buy into that idea. And then if you do end up launching people, that's something you could be proud of and talk about. So instead of trying to hold on to everything because, hey, they're great, if they get a better opportunity, we want to celebrate that. And then that's going to come around, because then when they're recommending people, they'll be like, hey, you know what? All over at Chick-fil-A, he told me when I started that he would do everything he can to help me, I don't know, get into real estate or whatever it is. And if we develop people and push them towards that, and then they get that opportunity, they're going to push people back to us and say, he meant it. He didn't try and, stop me from getting that opportunity. He actually supported me in that. And I think that's really exciting, if you really just have that mentality of, we will be okay, and we want to do what is best for our team members. And that might be them leaving us. That's really hard to kind of like say out loud and think about. But like, if you do that well, I honestly believe people will come running to be in your organization, because they know they can get something from it. And they know that you're going to let them go and celebrate them when they get what they view as their big breakthrough and success.
Absolutely. I thought that was a really, really good point, and it's all part of sort of the cycle of a business. So wanted to include that today as well. Well, Paul, I won't take any more of your time. I really appreciate you taking time last week to talk to people at Fresh for Business, and taking time to do this video as well. It's a struggle right now for businesses, but I think if you're willing to put your nose to the grindstone and not throw your hands up in the air, be like, there's nothing I can do about it. I think there's some solutions here, or at least to make it a little bit easier. So thank you for being a part of those solutions.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Doug.
And again, you can continue to follow all of our videos at the Chamber of Commerce website. If you're a member, you get access to the full videos. We've got the tips there on the public side of things and everything. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm Doug Jenkins with Paul Hadde for the Findlay Hancock County Chamber of Commerce.